Have you ever thought about policing with a dog team? It's hard to imagine, right? My dad, Raymond Zinck, joined the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in 1952, and his 37-year career was filled with unforgettable adventures. A passionate outdoorsman, he loved roughing it and remained active well into his late 80s. One of my dad's first postings was in Hopedale Labrador, where he embraced the local culture and way of life. Policing northern Labrador in the 1950s meant dealing with limited supplies, so like the locals, he had to fish and hunt for food. In the summer, he relied on boats and float planes to get around, while in winter, a dog team was often the only method of transportation, unless you were creative and mechanically inclined. Back then, policing was as much about community as it was about enforcement. Officers would travel to various little communities along the coast and check in on people, especially the elderly, and make sure everyone was okay. You'll notice in this old photo, my dad isn't even wearing a revolver or handcuffs. Life was just different back then. It always seemed to my dad that they spent all winter preparing for spring. Spring was spent in preparation for the summer, and summer and fall were spent preparing for the winter. It was without a doubt survival existence, and the local people always had lots to do. My dad had a dog team that he loved deeply. They weren't just his mode of transportation, they were his partners. And together they would hunt for seals and caribou, sometimes joining local hunters to gather food for the village. On this one hunt, they took down 23 caribou, feeding many people in the community for a long time. Up until my dad arrived, no member of the RCMP had ever had their own dog team on the Labrador coast. Usually they just hired locals to take them everywhere they needed to go. His lead dog, Beauty, held a very special place in his heart. He had incredible stories about her. Once, caught in a blinding snowstorm out on the ice, he couldn't see more than 10 feet. Freezing and disoriented, he thought land was over to his left, but Beauty kept pulling to the right. After struggling, he finally decided to trust her instincts. She not only led him to shore, but also to an old trapper's shack, likely smelling it even through the storm. That was one of the many times that Beauty saved his life. Beauty came from Baffin Island and was owned by a Mountie who was told he couldn't keep the dog. She was to be put down, but an RCMP pilot that knew my dad brought her back to Goose Bay and then up to Hopedale and gave him the dog. Despite being a smaller female, she was a natural-born leader with a perfect sense of direction and the ability to stay on course in the worst kind of wind or storm. She intuitively knew what my dad needed. She was an exceptional dog. My dad told me that these two dogs were passionately in love with one another and that they rarely strayed from one another's side. Setting his camera up on a tripod, my dad took this 1953 selfie of himself and his dogs out on a 3-day trip, all alone in the backcountry of northern Labrador. It's incredible to think about the bond between my dad and his dogs, and how on hundreds of trips they made it through the harshest, life-threatening conditions together. His time in Labrador in the 1950s wasn't just about upholding the law. Often it was about survival, resilience, and a deep connection to both nature and community. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see some more slides from my dad's collection. Thanks for watching.